The discovery. The scorching sun beat down on the dusty plains of the Gobi Desert, its relentless heat shimmering off the sand in waves. Dr. Samantha Chen wiped the sweat from her brow, her eyes fixed on the ground-penetrating radar display. For weeks, her team had been methodically scanning this remote area, following a hunch based on ancient myths and fragmented historical records. "Dr. Chen," a voice called out. She looked up to see her assistant, Mike, running towards her, kicking up a cloud of dust in his wake. "We've got something, you need to see this." Samantha's heart raced as she followed Mike to a nearby excavation site. As they approached, she saw a crowd of researchers gathered around a pit, their expressions a mix of excitement and disbelief. She pushed her way through, and what she saw made her breath catch in her throat. Protruding from the sand was a metallic object, its surface gleaming despite millennia of burial. Its smooth, curved shape defied any known ancient human technology. Samantha knelt beside it, her hand hovering just above its surface. "Is it warm?" she asked, feeling a subtle heat radiating from the object. One of her colleagues nodded. "It's maintaining a constant temperature despite being in direct sunlight for hours. This isn't anything we've ever encountered before." As the team carefully excavated around the object, its true form began to emerge. It was roughly cylindrical, about the size of a small car, with intricate patterns etched into its surface. What appeared to be a control panel sat at one end, covered in symbols unlike any known human language. "We need to get this to a secure facility immediately," Samantha declared, her mind racing with the implications of their discovery. "And someone get me a secure line to the UN. They need to know about this yesterday." Within hours, the site was swarming with military personnel and government officials. The object, now dubbed the Gobi artifact, was carefully extracted and transported to a state-of-the-art research facility outside of Beijing. Samantha and her team worked around the clock, analyzing every inch of the mysterious cylinder. Weeks turned into months, and slowly, the artifact began to reveal its secrets. The symbols on its surface were found to be a complex mathematical language, one that seemed to describe fundamental laws of physics in ways that challenged humanity's understanding of the universe. But the true breakthrough came when Samantha and her team managed to activate the artifact's internal systems. A holographic display sprang to life, filling the air with swirling galaxies and star systems. At its center stood a figure that, despite its alien features, was unmistakably humanoid. The hologram spoke, its words translated in real time by the artifact itself. "Greetings, children of Earth. If you are viewing this message, then you have rediscovered your heritage. I am Zelathor, last High Archon of the Terran Stellar Confederacy. What I am about to tell you will rewrite your understanding of human history and your place in the cosmos." Samantha and her team listened in awe as Zelathor recounted a tale that seemed more like science fiction than history. Hundreds of thousands of years ago, humanity had achieved interstellar travel and established a vast confederation spanning thousands of worlds. They have encountered other alien species, formed alliances, and fought wars across the stars. But their civilization was brought low by a cataclysmic event, a war against a mysterious force known only as the Void. In a last-ditch effort to preserve some fragment of their species, the Confederacy had hidden Earth away, using advanced technology to conceal the entire solar system and erase the memories of its inhabitants. "We hoped that one day you would rediscover your true nature," Zelathor's hologram continued. "This artifact contains the knowledge and technology of our civilization. Use it wisely, for the threats that once drove us to the brink of extinction may still lurk in the darkness between the stars." As the hologram faded, Samantha stood in stunned silence, her mind reeling from the implications. Humanity was not alone in the universe. In fact, they had once been one of its dominant species. And now, with the discovery of this artifact, they had the key to reclaiming that legacy. The news of the discovery spread like wildfire across the globe. Governments scrambled to respond, religious leaders debated the theological implications, and the scientific community was thrown into a frenzy of activity. The United Nations convened an emergency session to discuss humanity's next steps. Samantha found herself at the center of it all, testifying before world leaders and explaining the contents of the artifact to a global audience. "We stand at a crossroads," she declared in a speech that would be remembered for generations. "We have been given a glimpse of our true potential, of the heights we once achieved. Now we have a choice to make. Do we remain bound to Earth, or do we reach once more for the stars?" The response was overwhelming. Nations that had long been rivals now found common cause in the face of this revelation. Resources poured into new space programs and research initiatives aimed at unlocking the secrets contained within the Gobi artifact. But as humanity took its first tentative steps back onto the galactic stage, questions lingered. What other remnants of the old Confederacy might still exist out there? And what of the mysterious void that had driven humanity to such desperate measures? Had it been defeated, or was it still waiting in the dark reaches of space? Samantha Chen stood at her office window, gazing up at the night sky. The stars seemed different now, filled with possibility and hidden history. She knew that the discovery in the Gobi Desert was just the beginning. Humanity's greatest adventure was about to unfold, and she was determined to see it through. As she turned back to her desk, littered with reports and analysis of the artifact, a notification popped up on her computer screen. It was a message from one of the deep space listening posts that had been hastily constructed in the months following the discovery. Her heart pounded as she read the contents. A signal had been detected, coming from somewhere in the Orion arm of the galaxy. Its pattern matched perfectly with communication protocols described in the Gobi artifacts database. Someone out there was trying to make contact. Samantha's fingers flew across the keyboard, alerting her team and government officials. As she worked, she couldn't help but smile. The journey that had begun in the dusty plains of the Gobi was about to take humanity further than they had ever dreamed possible. The stars were calling, and this time, humanity would answer. First contact. The United Nations Space Command, UNSC, buzzed with activity. Screens displayed a cacophony of data streams, star charts, and communication logs. At the center of it all stood Dr. Samantha Chen, her eyes fixed on the main view screen showing a slowly approaching object. "Status report," she called out, her voice steady despite the tension in the air. "The vessel is maintaining its current trajectory," responded Captain Li Wei, the military liaison assigned to the project. "ETA to Earth orbit is approximately 6 hours. Samantha nodded, her mind racing. In the months since detecting the alien signal, humanity had been preparing for this moment. The Gobi artifact had provided them with a crash course in interstellar diplomacy and technology, but theory and practice were two very different things. "Any response to our hails?" she asked. "Negative, Doctor," replied the communications officer. "But they're definitely receiving. We're picking up increased activity in their communication bands." As the alien ship drew closer, its form became clearer. It was unlike anything humanity had ever constructed, a sleek, almost organic shape that seemed to shimmer and shift as it moved. Samantha couldn't help but marvel at its beauty and the engineering prowess it represented. Suddenly, the main screen flickered and a face appeared. The being was humanoid, but with distinct differences: iridescent skin, large, almond-shaped eyes, and a crest of what looked like feathers atop its head. "Greetings, children of terror," the alien spoke, its words translated by the systems derived from the Gobi artifact. "I am Ambassador Zilax of the Galactic Concordat. We have long awaited your awakening." Samantha stepped forward, her heart pounding. "On behalf of humanity, I welcome you, Ambassador Zilax. I am Dr. Samantha Chen, lead researcher of the Terran Reclamation Project." Zilax's expression shifted into what Samantha hoped was a smile. "Dr. Chen, it brings us great joy to see the Terrans rising once again. When we detected the activation of your beacon, we knew the time had come to re-establish contact." Over the next few hours, as Zilax's ship entered Earth orbit, A flurry of communication ensued. The Galactic Concordat, it turned out, was a coalition of species that had once been allies of the old Terran Stellar Confederacy. They had honored the ancient pact to protect Earth, keeping watch from afar as humanity slowly rebuilt. As diplomatic talks progressed, Samantha found herself in a private meeting with Xilax aboard the alien vessel. The ship's interior was a marvel of biotechnology, with walls that seemed to breathe and consoles that responded to thought as much as touch. "Your people have progressed remarkably in such a short time," Xilax commented, gesturing to a holographic display of Earth's recent technological advancements. "There is still much for you to reclaim." Samantha nodded, her curiosity overflowing. "The Gobi artifact has given us glimpses of our past, but there's so much we don't understand. Can you tell us more about the Terran Stellar Confederacy? About the war that forced us into hiding?" Xilax's expression grew somber. The Void War, as we came to call it, was a conflict unlike any the galaxy had seen before or since. The enemy, if it could truly be called that, was not a species or an empire, but something far more ancient and terrible. The ambassador waved a hand, and the holographic display shifted to show a swirling mass of darkness, punctuated by flashes of energy. "The void is a force that exists between realities, a cosmic horror that seeks to unmake creation itself. Your ancestors, the Terrans, were at the forefront of the battle against it." Samantha watched in awe as the display showed massive fleets engaged in battle against the encroaching darkness. Ships that dwarfed anything humanity could currently conceive unleashed energies that warped the very fabric of space-time. "The Terrans possessed unique abilities," Xilax continued, "a gift of consciousness that allowed them to manipulate the fundamental forces of the universe in ways no other species could. It was this power that made them both our greatest allies and the primary target of the void." "But if we were so powerful," Samantha interjected, "why did we lose? Why hide Earth away?" Xilax's gaze met hers, filled with a mixture of sadness and hope. "You didn't lose, Dr. Chen. You sacrificed. In the final days of the war, when all seemed lost, the Terran High Council made a decision. They used their combined power to create a seal, a barrier that would hold the void at bay for millennia. But the cost. The hologram showed a shimmering wall of energy spreading across the galaxy, pushing back the encroaching darkness. As it did, countless Terran worlds winked out of existence, hidden away like Earth had been. "The majority of your species poured their very essence into that seal," Xilax explained. "Those who remained hid away the last of your worlds, erasing their own memories to ensure the secret would never be found by the enemy. It was always hoped that one day, when the seal began to weaken, the hidden Terrans would reawaken to take up the mantle once more." Samantha stood in stunned silence, the weight of this revelation pressing down on her. Humanity's forgotten history was one of heroism and sacrifice on a cosmic scale, and now it seemed they were being called back to that grand stage. "The seal is weakening, isn't it?" she asked, already knowing the answer. Xilax nodded gravely. "We have held the line as best we could, but without the Terrans, it's only a matter of time before the void breaks through. That's why we're here, Dr. Chen, not just to welcome you back to the galactic community, but to ask for your help. The galaxy needs the Terrans once more." As if on cue, alarms began blaring throughout the ship. Xilax rushed to a nearby console, his movements urgent. "It's happening faster than we anticipated," he said, his voice tight. "We're detecting void incursions in multiple sectors." Samantha watched as the galactic map lit up with warning signals. The enormity of the situation crashed down upon her. Humanity had only just learned of its true heritage, and already they were being called to face a threat beyond imagination. But as she looked at the concern on Xilax's face, at the worlds in peril on the display, she felt something stir within her. A sense of duty, of purpose, that went beyond the confines of Earth, the very essence of what had once made humanity a force to be reckoned with across the stars. "What do you need us to do?" she asked, her voice filled with determination. Xilax turned to her, hope shining in his alien eyes. First, we awaken the rest of your hidden worlds. Then, we need you to remember, Dr. Chen. Remember the power that lies dormant within your species. The void is coming, and the Terrans may be the galaxy's only hope. As the alien ship broke orbit, carrying with it the first human delegation to leave the solar system in hundreds of thousands of years, Samantha felt a mix of fear and exhilaration. Humanity's isolation was over, but the greatest challenge in their history lay ahead. The stars had called and humanity had answered. Now, the true test would begin. Galactic politics. The Grand Assembly Hall of the Galactic Concordat was a marvel of alien architecture. Its vast, domed ceilings seemed to reflect the very stars themselves, while the curved walls pulsed with bioluminescent patterns that conveyed information in a language of light and color. At the center of this cosmic amphitheater stood Dr. Samantha Chen, representing humanity in its first address to the assembled species of known space. Distinguished representatives of the Galactic Concordat, Samantha began, her voice steady despite the butterflies in her stomach. On behalf of Earth and all awakened Terran worlds, I thank you for this warm welcome back into the galactic community. As she spoke, she couldn't help but marvel at the diversity before her. Beings of all shapes, sizes, and compositions filled the chamber. Some floated in anti-gravity fields, others were encased in environment suits, and still others seemed to phase in and out of visible reality. We come before you today, not just as returning members of this esteemed body, but as those who must humbly ask for your aid, Samantha continued. The threat of the void looms over us all, and while we Terrans are committed to fulfilling our ancient duty, we cannot do it alone. A murmur rippled through the assembly. Xilax, standing nearby as Earth's sponsor, gave Samantha an encouraging nod. We propose a joint task force, Samantha pressed on, one that combines the unique strengths of all our species. Together, we can research ways to reinforce the weakening seal, prepare our defenses, and perhaps even find a way to end the void threat once and for all. As Samantha concluded her speech, the assembly erupted into a cacophony of debate. Holographic displays lit up around the chamber as various factions argued, shared data, and formed alliances. It was a stark reminder that despite the unifying threat of the void, galactic politics was still a complex and often fractious affair. Ambassador Krell of the Jothar hegemony, a species of silicon-based crystalline entities, was the first to formally respond. While we welcome the return of the Terrans, Krell's melodic voice resonated. We must question the wisdom of placing such trust in a species that has been absent from galactic affairs for millennia. How can we be certain that the Terrans still possess the abilities they once did? Before Samantha could respond, another voice cut in. The Terrans' abilities are not in question, declared Sinra, the avian representative of the Etherian Collective. Our histories speak of their great sacrifice. We would be fools to dismiss such allies in our time of need. The debate raged on, with various factions voicing their support or concerns. Some, like the enigmatic Void Walkers, seemed eager to align with humanity, while others, such as the mercantile Kitaxian Guild, appeared more interested in the potential economic implications of reintegrating the Terran worlds. As the arguments heated up, Samantha felt a hand on her shoulder. She turned to see Admiral Helena Graves, the military representative of Earth's delegation. Politics, Helena muttered. Some things never change, even on a galactic scale. Samantha nodded, but before she could reply, a commotion near the entrance of the chamber caught everyone's attention. A group of beings, shrouded in dark, shifting cloaks, strode purposefully towards the center of the hall. The assembled representatives fell silent, an air of unease spreading through the room. The shattered conclave, Xilax whispered to Samantha. They rarely attend these gatherings. Something must be terribly wrong. The leader of the shattered conclave raised a hand, and when it spoke, its voice seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Esteemed members of the Concordat, Terran representatives, we bring grave tidings. The void stirs more violently than we had feared. Our seers have glimpsed catastrophe on an unimaginable scale. The seal will fail within a galactic year unless drastic action is taken. The chamber erupted into panic. Species that had been arguing moments before now huddled together in fear. Samantha felt her heart racing, but she forced herself to remain calm. This was the moment that would define humanity's return to the galactic stage. She stepped forward, her voice cutting through the chaos. Then we have no choice but to act now. The Terrans stand ready to do whatever is necessary. We call upon all members of the Concordat to set aside their differences and unite against this common threat. Her words seemed to have an effect. Gradually, the panic subsided, replaced by a grim determination. One by one, representatives stepped forward to pledge their support. The Jothar hegemony offers its quantum computers and predictive algorithms, Krell announced, their crystalline forms shimmering. The Aetherian Collective will provide our fastest ships and most skilled navigators, Sinra chirped. Even the Cutaxin Guild, seeing the potential for profit in averting apocalypse, offered its vast network of trade routes and resources. As the pledges continued, Samantha felt a surge of hope, but she also knew that this was just the beginning. The real challenge lay ahead. In the days that followed, the newly formed alliance against the Void worked tirelessly. Samantha found herself at the heart of it all, coordinating efforts between species that had been strangers mere weeks ago. The Terran worlds, guided by the knowledge contained in artifacts like the one found in the Gobi Desert, began the arduous process of reawakening their long-dormant abilities. But as Samantha pored over reports and attended endless strategy sessions, she couldn't shake a growing sense of unease. The Void was more than just a force of cosmic destruction. It was intelligent, adaptable, and if the histories were to be believed, it had nearly defeated the galaxy once before, even with the Terrans at the height of their power. What hope did they have now, with humanity still struggling to reclaim its legacy? As if in answer to her doubts, alarms blared throughout the Concordat's headquarters. Samantha rushed to the central command center, where a grim-faced Xilax was coordinating a flurry of activity. "We've detected a massive void incursion in the Orion Spur," Xilax reported, his usual calm demeanor shaken. "It's tearing through our outer defenses like they're not even there." Samantha stared at the tactical display, watching as entire star systems winked out of existence. The Void was no longer content to seek through weaknesses in the seal. It was launching a full-scale invasion. "It's time," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "We need to awaken all the remaining Terran worlds. Now." Xilax nodded gravely, and then Samantha squared her shoulders, feeling the weight of history and the future pressing down upon her. "And then we remind the galaxy why the Void feared us in the first place." As orders were relayed and fleets mobilized, Samantha allowed herself a moment of reflection. Humanity had come so far in such a short time, from a species unaware of its cosmic heritage to the linchpin in the galaxy's defense. But their greatest challenge still lay ahead. The Void was coming, and the fate of all creation hung in the balance. It was time for humanity to rise to its full potential, to reclaim the stars that were once theirs, and to stand as a shield against the encroaching darkness. The next phase of the war was about to begin, and Samantha Chen, once a simple archaeologist, now found herself at the forefront of the greatest conflict in the history of the universe. The threat emerges, the bridge of the TSS Prometheus, humanity's first true interstellar warship in millennia, thrummed with tension. Admiral Helena Graves stood at the command station, her eyes fixed on the swirling maelstrom of the void breach that filled the main view screen. "Status report," she barked, her voice cutting through the low murmur of activity. "The void continues to expand at an exponential rate, Admiral," reported her XO, Commander Raj Patel. "We're detecting spatial anomalies across a radius of 3 light-years and growing." Helena's jaw tightened. The situation was deteriorating faster than their worst projections. She tapped her comm link. Dr. Chen, please report to the bridge immediately. Moments later, Samantha Chen rushed onto the bridge, her eyes widening at the sight of the void breach. By the stars, she breathed. It's beautiful in a terrifying way. Save the scientific appreciation for later, Doctor, Helena said, but there was no real bite in her tone. We need options. The conventional weapons of our allies are having no effect, and we're still struggling to reactivate our own Terran abilities. Samantha nodded, her mind racing. The past few weeks had been a whirlwind of activity as humanity scrambled to reclaim its cosmic heritage. Ancient training facilities had been reactivated on Earth and other awakened Terran worlds, but progress was frustratingly slow. The power that had once made humanity the guardians of the galaxy seemed maddeningly out of reach. We need more time, Samantha said, frustration evident in her voice. Our ancestors spent lifetimes honing these abilities. We can't expect to master them in a matter of weeks. As if in response to her words, a violent tremor shook the ship. Alarms blared as cracks of absolute darkness began to spider across the view screen. Void tendrils breaching our shields, shouted the tactical officer. They're trying to pull us in. Helena's hands flew across her console, initiating evasive maneuvers. All hands, brace for emergency warp jump. The stars outside stretched into lines as the Prometheus leaped into faster-than-light travel, narrowly escaping the grasping tendrils of the void. As the ship stabilized, Helena turned to Samantha, her expression grim. We're out of time, Doctor. If we can't unlock our abilities soon, there won't be a galaxy left to save. Samantha nodded, her mind racing. There had to be something they were missing, some key to unlocking the dormant power within humanity. She excused herself and rushed to her makeshift lab aboard the Prometheus. Hours passed as Samantha pored over the data from the Gobi artifact and the other relics they discovered. Ancient equations and esoteric theories swam before her eyes. It was all there, the knowledge of how their ancestors had wielded the very forces of creation, but translating that knowledge into practical application seemed an insurmountable task. A soft chime at her door roused her from her concentration. Enter, she called out absently. Zilax glided into the room, his iridescent skin shimmering with concern. Dr. Chen, I hope I'm not interrupting, but there's been a development you need to see. He waved a hand, and a holographic display sprang to life in the center of the lab. It showed a star system Samantha didn't recognize, with a massive void breach at its heart. But what caught her attention were the pinpricks of light pushing back against the darkness. Are those Terrans? She asked, hardly daring to believe it. Zilax nodded. A lost colony, one that wasn't fully hidden during the Great Retreat. They've retained more of their ancestral abilities than the Earthborn humans. They're holding the line, but they can't do it alone. Samantha watched in awe as the distant Terrans wielded energies she could barely comprehend, carving rifts in the void and seething breaches with sheer force of will. It was a glimpse of what humanity could be, of the power that lay dormant within them all. We need to get there, she said, determination flooding her voice. These Terrans might hold the key to unlocking our abilities. But even as she spoke, a new alert flashed across the display. The void was adapting, learning from each encounter. Tendrils of darkness lashed out, snuffing out the lights of the Terran defenders one by one. No, Samantha whispered, watching helplessly as the battle turned. We can't lose them. They're our last hope. As if triggered by her distress, something shifted within Samantha. A warmth spread through her body, a feeling of connection to something vast and ancient. Without fully understanding what she was doing, she reached out with her mind, stretching across the vast distances of space. To her shock, she felt the distant Terrans respond. Their minds touched hers, and in that moment of connection, knowledge flooded into her. Generations of training and experience compressed into a single, overwhelming instant. Samantha gasped, staggering back. Zilax caught her, his expression a mix of concern and hope. Dr. Chen, what happened? I felt them, she said, her voice shaking. All of them. Their knowledge, their power. It's like a door has been unlocked in my mind. She straightened, a new light in her eyes. Get me to the bridge. Now. Moments later, Samantha stood before Admiral Graves, her entire bearing transformed. Admiral, set a course for these coordinates, she said, inputting a series of numbers into the navigation console, and prepare for battle. Helena raised an eyebrow, but didn't question the order. All hands, battle stations, prepare for warp jump. As the Prometheus hurtled through space towards the embattled Terran colony, Samantha closed her eyes, reaching out with her newly awakened senses. She could feel the other humans aboard the ship, their dormant abilities flickering like embers waiting to be fanned into flame. Listen to me, she said, her voice resonating not just through the ship's comm system, but directly into the minds of every human aboard. The power is within all of us. It always has been. We just need to remember. As she spoke, she shared the knowledge she had gained, guiding her fellow humans to unlock the abilities that were their birthright. One by one, she felt them awaken, their minds joining hers in a growing network of power and consciousness. The Prometheus dropped out of warp on the edge of the battlefield. The view screen showed a scene of cosmic horror. The void had nearly engulfed the entire system, with only a handful of Terran defenders still holding out. But now, humanity had arrived in force. All Terran personnel, Admiral Graves commanded, her own nascent abilities adding weight to her words, engage the enemy. Show them why they once feared us. What followed was a battle unlike any the galaxy had seen in eons. The humans aboard the Prometheus reached out with minds and wills newly awakened to their true potential. They tore rifts in the fabric of space-time, channeled the energies of stars, and wove shields of pure thought. Samantha stood at the heart of it all, guiding and coordinating their efforts. Through her connection to the distant Terran colony, she could feel the tide of battle turning. The void recoiled, its advance halted for the first time since the invasion began. But even as hope began to surge, Samantha felt a chill of dread. The void was more than just a force of destruction. It was intelligent, adaptable. And now, it had recognized the threat that awakened humanity posed. As the humans pressed their advantage, the heart of the void breach pulsed with malevolent purpose. Tendrils of absolute darkness lashed out, not at ships or planets, but at the very minds of the Terran defenders. Samantha screamed as she felt the attack, a cold so profound it threatened to extinguish the very spark of her being. Around her, other humans collapsed, their newly awakened powers flickering under the assault. Through the haze of pain, Samantha realized the terrible truth. The void wasn't just fighting for territory or resources. It was fighting to exterminate the one force in the universe that could truly oppose it. The war had entered a new phase, and the very soul of humanity was now the battleground. As alarms blared and the ship shuddered under renewed assault, Samantha gritted her teeth and reached out to her fellow humans once more. They had rediscovered their power, but now they would have to evolve it, pushing the boundaries of what was possible. The fate of not just humanity, but all of creation hung in the balance. And Samantha Chen, once a simple archaeologist, now found herself at the focal point of the greatest conflict in cosmic history. The void had made its move. Now it was humanity's turn to respond. Unlocking ancient power. The medical bay of the TSS Prometheus hummed with activity as doctors and scientists worked tirelessly to treat the victims of the void's psychic assault. Dr. Samantha Chen sat on the edge of a bed, her head in her hands, fighting off the lingering effects of the attack. "How are the others?" she asked, looking up as Admiral Helena Graves entered the room. Helena's face was grim. "We've lost a third of our psychically active crew. The rest are in various states of recovery, like you." Samantha nodded, a weight settling in her chest. They had tasted victory, only to have it snatched away by an enemy that seemed to be always one step ahead. "We need to adapt," Samantha said, standing up despite the protest of her aching body. "The void is targeting our minds directly. We need to find a way to shield ourselves, to fight back on that level. Helena raised an eyebrow. And how do you propose we do that, Doctor? We've barely scratched the surface of our abilities. Before Samantha could respond, a commotion at the door drew their attention. A group of the surviving Terrans from the lost colony was being brought in, their iridescent robes stark against the utilitarian backdrop of the ship. One of them, an elderly woman with eyes that seemed to hold the wisdom of ages, broke away from the group and approached Samantha. Without a word, she reached out and placed a hand on Samantha's forehead. The world fell away. Samantha found herself standing in a vast, star-filled void, face to face with the ancient Terran. "You seek the key to our power," the woman said, her voice echoing across the cosmos. "But you look outward when you should be looking within." "I don't understand," Samantha replied, frustration coloring her words. "We've unlocked our abilities, but the void still overwhelms us. What are we missing?" The old woman smiled, and in that smile, Samantha saw the birth and death of galaxies. "You have scratched the surface, young one. But true mastery comes not from wielding power, but from becoming one with it." With those words, the elder Terran dissolved into motes of light that swirled around Samantha. She felt knowledge pouring into her, not as facts or figures, but as a fundamental shift in her perception of reality. Samantha gasped as she snapped back to the medical bay, her mind reeling from the experience. The elder Terran swayed on her feet, caught by her companions. "What just happened?" Helena demanded, looking between Samantha and the Terrans with a mix of concern and curiosity. "A gift," Samantha whispered, her eyes wide with wonder. "And a key." Over the next few days, as the Prometheus regrouped with the rest of the Terran fleet, Samantha worked tirelessly with the elder Terrans. They taught her meditation techniques that allowed her to plumb the depths of her own consciousness, to touch the very source of her power. She learned that the abilities humans had rediscovered were merely the tip of the iceberg. True mastery lay in understanding that they were not separate from the universe, but an intrinsic part of it. The power they wielded was not something to be used, but a fundamental aspect of their being. As Samantha delved deeper into these esoteric teachings, she began to see the universe in a new light. The boundaries between matter and energy, between thought and reality, blurred. She could sense the underlying patterns of creation, the ebb and flow of cosmic forces. But even as she made these breakthroughs, the void continued its relentless advance. Reports came in from across the galaxy of worlds falling to darkness, of entire civilizations being snuffed out like candles in a storm. Time was running out. In a bold move, Samantha proposed a daring plan to the Galactic Concordat. They would gather the most powerful psychics from every species, not just humans, and attempt a mind meld on an unprecedented scale. By combining their consciousnesses, they hoped to create a psychic bulwark against the void's attacks and perhaps even find a way to strike back. The plan was met with skepticism and fear, but in the face of annihilation, even the most conservative factions of the Concordat were willing to take the risk. And so, on a specially constructed space station at the heart of the Milky Way, representatives from 1,000 species gathered. Humans stood alongside crystalline beings, energy constructs, and life forms that defied easy categorization. At the center of it all stood Samantha, her eyes closed in concentration as she prepared to link the minds of this diverse assembly. "Remember," she said, her voice carrying to every corner of the vast chamber, "we are not separate beings wielding separate powers. We are the universe experiencing itself. The void seeks to unmake creation, but we are creation. Let that truth be our shield and our sword." With those words, she reached out with her mind, touching the consciousness of each being in the room. It was like nothing she had ever experienced, a kaleidoscope of thoughts, emotions, and perceptions beyond human understanding. For a moment, it seemed as if the sheer diversity of minds would overwhelm her. But then, guided by the teachings of the elder Terrans, Samantha found the common thread that ran through all conscious beings, the spark of existence itself. As the meld deepened, a new consciousness emerged, greater than the sum of its parts. Through it, Samantha could sense the entire galaxy, from the hearts of stars to the depths of black holes. And on the fringes, she felt the cold touch of the void. But this time, they were ready. As the void lashed out with its mind-shattering power, it met a wall of unified consciousness. The combined will of a galaxy's worth of sapient beings stood firm against the onslaught of uncreation. For the first time since it had breached the ancient seals, the void's advance was not just halted, but pushed back. Through the mind meld, Samantha guided the unified consciousness in weaving a new barrier, not of energy or matter, but of pure will and awareness. Wherever the void touched, it found not defenseless worlds, but an unbreakable shield of collective determination. As the tide of battle turned, Samantha felt a surge of hope. They had found a way to stand against the darkness, to protect the spark of life and consciousness against the encroaching void. But even as they celebrated this victory, a chilling realization swept through the collective consciousness. The void they had been fighting, as vast and terrifying as it was merely a tendril of something far greater. Beyond the boundaries of their galaxy, beyond even the local galactic cluster, lay an ocean of nothingness that dwarfed everything they had faced so far. The true void, the wellspring of uncreation, had taken notice of their resistance. And it was coming. As the mind meld dissolved and the various beings returned to their individual consciousnesses, a somber silence fell over the assembly. They had won a battle, perhaps even turned the tide of the war, but the true test still lay ahead. Samantha stood at the center of the chamber, her mind reeling from the experience and the weight of what she had sensed. They had unlocked the true potential of not just humanity, but of all sapient life. They had rediscovered the power that had once made the Terrans the guardians of creation. But would it be enough to face what was coming? As the representatives of the Galactic Concordat turned to her for guidance, Samantha took a deep breath. The final battle for the fate of all existence was approaching, and she knew that every scrap of knowledge, every iota of power they had uncovered would be put to the test. The universe itself seemed to hold its breath, waiting to see if life and consciousness could stand against the ultimate entropy of the void. The stage was set for the final confrontation, the final stand. The galactic core pulsed with energy, a swirling maelstrom of stars and cosmic forces that dwarfed comprehension. At its heart, the combined fleets of the Galactic Concordat gathered for what might be their final stand. Ships of every conceivable design and origin formed a vast, shimmering wall against the encroaching darkness. Aboard the TSS Prometheus, now serving as the flagship of the United Forces, Dr. Samantha Chen stood before a holographic display of the galaxy. Red tendrils of the void crept inward from the outer rim, consuming everything in their path. Status report. Admiral Helena Grace commanded, her voice tight with tension. The void's main force will reach our position in approximately 6 hours, Commander Raj Patel responded. Our long-range sensors are detecting something massive approaching behind it. We can't get clear readings, but it's like a hole in reality itself. Samantha nodded grimly. The true void, the source of all this destruction. The command center fell silent as the weight of their situation settled over them. They had fought back the initial invasion, but now they faced the full might of a force that sought to unmake creation itself. Zilax, representing the Galactic Concordat, stepped forward. Dr. Chen, the combined psychic assembly is ready. We await your guidance. Samantha took a deep breath, centering herself. In the months since their first successful mind meld, they had refined the process, creating a vast psychic network that spanned the galaxy. It was their greatest weapon against the void, but also their greatest vulnerability. Very well, she said. Let's begin. As Samantha closed her eyes and reached out with her mind, she felt the consciousnesses of trillions of beings touch hers. Humans stood alongside aliens of every description, their minds united in purpose. Through their combined awareness, she could sense the approaching void in all its terrifying glory. It was vaster than they had imagined, a cosmic cancer eating away at the very fabric of space-time. But as overwhelming as it was, Samantha also sensed something else, a pattern, a rhythm to its movements. The void wasn't just a force of mindless destruction, it was conscious, purposeful. And that meant it could be reasoned with. Opening her eyes, Samantha turned to Admiral Graves. "We need to make contact," she said, her voice filled with a mixture of fear and determination. Helena's eyes widened. Contact. With that thing? How? "Through me," Samantha replied. "Through all of us. The psychic network we've created. It's not just a defense. It's a bridge." The plan was insane, borderline suicidal. But as the options dwindled and the void drew ever closer, it became clear that it was their only hope. Preparations were made quickly. Samantha was placed in a specially designed chamber at the heart of the Prometheus, surrounded by the most powerful psychics from a dozen species. As the ship moved to the forefront of the fleet, directly in the path of the oncoming void, Samantha reached out with all her might. The experience defied description. Samantha felt her consciousness expand beyond the confines of her body, beyond the ship, beyond the fleet. She became aware of every star, every planet, every mote of dust in the galaxy. And then she touched the void. It was like plunging into an ocean of absolute nothingness. Cold beyond cold, empty beyond empty. But there at its heart, she sensed something, a presence, ancient beyond imagining. Who dares? The thought wasn't words so much as a concept, a ripple of curiosity in the vast nothingness. Gathering her courage, Samantha responded, "I am Samantha Chen, of Earth of the Terran race. I come seeking understanding." There was a pause, a moment that seemed to stretch for eternity. Then, understanding? "You, a mote of dust in the cosmic wind, seek to understand us." "Yes," Samantha replied. "We want to know why. Why do you seek to destroy all of creation?" The response came not in words, but in a flood of sensations and concepts. Samantha saw the birth of the universe, the first stirrings of consciousness, the long, slow march of entropy. She felt the weight of eons, the tiredness of a cosmos growing old. The void wasn't a force of evil, she realized. It was the universe's own immune system, trying to wipe the slate clean for a fresh start. But in doing so, it would erase all the beauty, all the complexity that had arisen. "It doesn't have to be this way," Samantha argued, pouring all of her emotions, all of her experiences into the thought. Life, consciousness, were not a mistake to be erased. Were the universe experiencing itself, growing, evolving. She shared memories, a child's laughter, the triumph of scientific discovery, the beauty of art, the depth of love. And not just human experiences, but those of every species in the galactic concordat. The joy, the sorrow, the sheer richness of conscious existence. For a moment, there was silence. Then slowly, she felt something shift in the vast consciousness of the void. Curiosity, then wonder, then longing. "We had forgotten," came the response. "The beauty of creation, the potential of life. We sought to end suffering by ending all, but in doing so, we would have ended joy as well." Samantha felt a surge of hope. "Then you'll stop, you'll leave our universe in peace." "Not entirely," the void replied. "Balance must be maintained, but perhaps there is a middle ground." What followed was a negotiation unlike any in the history of the universe. Samantha, channeling the combined will and creativity of the galactic concordat, worked with the consciousness of the void to find a solution. In the physical world, the fleet watched in awe as the encroaching darkness began to recede, but it didn't disappear entirely. Instead, it began to coalesce, forming a shimmering barrier at the edge of the galaxy. Hours later, when Samantha finally opened her eyes, she was greeted by the concerned faces of her friends and colleagues. "What happened?" Helena asked, helping her to her feet. "The void, it's changed." Samantha smiled warily. "We reached an understanding. The void will remain as a barrier around our galaxy, containing our expansion, but also protecting us from extragalactic threats. In return, we've promised to send volunteers, consciousness without physical form, to explore the space beyond, to bring new experiences and perspectives back to the void. The implications were staggering. The threat was ended, but the adventure was just beginning. Humanity and its alien allies had not just saved the galaxy, they had opened up an entirely new frontier of exploration and understanding. As news of the resolution spread, celebrations erupted across the galaxy. Species that had been bitter enemies now found common ground in their shared survival. The galactic concordat, forged in the crucible of this crisis, stood poised to usher in an unprecedented era of cooperation and discovery. Samantha stood at the viewport of the Prometheus, gazing out at the stars. They seemed brighter somehow, more full of promise. Humanity had rediscovered its heritage, unlocked powers beyond imagination, and faced down the greatest threat in the history of the universe. But more than that, they had remembered the most important lesson of all, the power of empathy, of seeking to understand rather than simply destroy. It was this, more than any psychic ability or advanced technology, that had saved them all. As the ship turned towards Earth, Samantha felt a sense of pride and purpose wash over her. The journey that had begun with a simple archaeological dig in the Gobi Desert had led to the transformation of the entire galaxy. And now, with the boundaries of known space expanded beyond imagination, a new chapter in the story of life and consciousness was about to begin. The stars beckoned, filled with mysteries to unravel and wonders to explore, and humanity, standing alongside its galactic neighbors, was ready to answer the call. The end was just the beginning.